Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Happy Flosser podcast. My name is Billy Lunt. I'm your host, and I'm here to talk everything dental hygiene to support you on your journey through the dental hygiene program. And I'm so excited today to have a guest, Noriana Prior, who I met at RDH Evolution. And Noriana has taken time out of her busy, crazy schedule to come on the podcast and share why she became a hygienist, and maybe some inspiring message to you as a dental hygiene student going through the program on how she can be a part of your journey and give you some great advice as you move through the program and beyond. So welcome, Noriana. So happy to have you with me.
Thank you for having me, Billy. I am so glad that you came into my life at Evolution and we just had a great connection, and look at us today hanging out. So I appreciate you taking the initiative to be there.
Oh, it was wonderful. It was like filling the room up with all positive, inspiring, and like-minded people. Didn't you feel that in the room?
It was, yes, the energy that absorbed in you. It wasn't just one where you walked out the door and that energy was left. I mean, I feel like weeks later, it's still invigorating me to just have a really open mindset on where my future is still left to be decided.
Yeah, and I have to say the very same. I just, sometimes you go to a conference and you leave, and at first you're really excited and ignited to make changes or improvements or growth. And then it kind of depletes over the weeks. I feel like probably because I was given homework assignments, I feel like I'm going forward with more motivation. So that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we could start by you sharing how you got into this field and what keeps you going and growing.
Okay. So I I guess I really owe it to my mother, who was never really a part of my life until after I became a single mother. And she was a dental assistant who was trained on the job and had a passion for it, and told me I had to become a hygienist. That was my only thing in life I should do, was to become a hygienist, because the schedule was great. I'll be able to be a single mom, everything in underneath. She sold it to me. So I took the initiative and started getting my prerequisites, venturing out and to figure out what programs, because programs have wait lists, programs have different requirements, and I had to find something that worked with me being a single mom. And just one day, randomly, after applying and submitting multiple applications, I got a letter that said I was accepted, and it was to a small college in Albany, Georgia. I was living in Florida at the time, and oddly, I don't remember having to do an exam or submitting an essay to them or anything. So I just took it as a sign that that's where I had to go, even if I had to move to another state. And once again, my mom in the backyard was telling me this would be a great career for me, because I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And I didn't mind. She took me to work often, and I would be able to file charts. I would answer phones. So, I had some indication on what a dental hygienist really does, but it didn't click. So I moved to Albany, Georgia, and lived in a barn when I went to dental hygiene school, and had a horse for a roommate. But that's what I needed to do to be, it was affordable, it was accessible, and I had to do it because my mother said so.
I love that.
And so then graduation goes on. We're coming out of the recession, early 2007, 2008. The market was very different than it is today. You would have a job opening in almost 30 applications, right? So it was really tough. And as a new grad, your skill set, you learned a lot, but you maybe weren't what they were looking for. They wanted someone to be able maybe to do 45-minute profis or accelerated hygiene. And we were very used to our 2-hour appointments and a lot of grace on time. So I struggled getting a job. So I would say after graduation, I didn't love being a hygienist. Probably for the first 5 years, just it was hard. It was hard finding an office that was a good fit. I often looked for mentorship, and when you go into a practice, that's not always there and available for you. So, and I took what I could get. So I job shared my first job at a pedo office with another hygienist, and that was rough. Even though I had a child of my own, pedo is, I mean, just having to be happy all day long for those kids was just a little much for me. But I also enjoyed that working in peds taught me a lot too, right? So I looked at it as a learning. Kids are honest. They're going to tell you how you feel. They're going to tell you how they feel, like all of it. So it was a great learning experience, but really those first 5 years, I hated being a dental hygienist, which makes me sad now because it's the complete opposite. But it's not always a love at any given moment in your daily practice either.
Thank you for sharing that, because there might be students who are recent graduates who might be feeling that. And I'll just share, of all my years as a hygienist, 2008 through 2012 were the hardest years for me because it was a different climate then. So thankfully things have shifted. But I love that at any given time in your career, you can experience some challenges. That's a really great point. Yeah. So what turned the corner for you? How did you come out of that mindset?
Yeah, it took me a little while. Well, I actually worked for a dentist in Georgia who had the kindest heart. I mean, and so that kind of really opened my eyes and helped me change my mindset, because he would give the shirt off his back to someone on the street. He would often open the door and just say, if someone's in pain, we're going to treat them. I don't care about cost. We need to help, right? So for the beginning of my career, it was more like make money, not only for myself because I just had all this debt, but that was the mindset of some of the offices I was going into versus being the healthcare provider to help. So I learned so much. This dentist let me barter with patients. So, and I think that's what good old Southern, if a patient couldn't pay, and we often had patients that worked on the shrimp boats, we would get paid by shrimp. We would get paid in other things. And so it just really nurtured my soul. I then had a second child and was at this office, and I was going to go on maternity leave. Well, the one hygienist broke her hand. The other one had to have carpal tunnel surgery. So he called me, and I just had a baby 3 weeks later. And he was like, is there any way you can come back? And I was like, I don't know how. I have a newborn. And he's like, bring the baby to work. We'll make it work. And I brought the baby to work because the dental office was in a house. So the upstairs was actually like a house. But one thing I found about that community is that community was willing to help me raise my child. So everybody stepped in. I mean, patients would be like, oh, I'm just going to come and hold the baby. I'm just going to go upstairs and come. Like, because it was just this unique community that I'd never experienced in my life, where I was wanting to go to work because I needed that, being a mom again, and a mom of a newborn, and my husband was and he was deploying for Afghanistan. So I needed this community. And he also said, if you want to just work 2 hours, give me 2 hours. If you want to work a full day, give me whatever you could give. And once again, I'd never had that in my career. So then I've really started feeling my value and worth. So then we move, and I'm very sad. My husband comes back from his deployment. We move all the way to Washington State. And so at the time I'd practiced in Georgia and North Carolina, where we were very limited at the time with, we couldn't do anesthesia. We couldn't even see the patient unless the doctor was on the premises. So a lot of kind of limiting mindset, right? And just the way of our licensure. And here I go to Washington, where hygienists have been doing anesthetics since the 70s, are doing restorative and doing all these amazing things. So then I really started feeling incompetent, that I wasn't up to par, right? Because these hygienists were just educators in their own mind. They practiced so differently, and they just had a wealth of knowledge. So then my love of CE started occurring, which even made my passion for being a dental hygienist elevate. So I'm going to every continuing education course I can sign up for, because I want to be like these hygienists. I want to be like them because they're giving the patients the best of care. Their knowledge is so broad that they're tailoring it. And it wasn't just the standard, okay, you're going to brush and floss. You're just going to do this. We're going to look at your overall health, the systemic link. And so then I just continued to start temping, because I wanted to see what every office was doing. I wanted to see the technology that was out there. I wanted to learn from more than just one hygienist. So that's when this really, I fell in love with dental hygiene to where it is a part of me no matter where I go, whether I'm traveling abroad and I start a conversation and it always leads to dental, or I'm at somebody's barbecue and we're talking about dental, because it is just in my soul. And so I really feel, as these graduates come out, to have this mindset that you should commit to lifelong learning, because we are often think after graduation, we have everything to move forward, when there is such a big world, especially as our technology is advancing. We're learning way more about systemic saliva testing, all these things that we just sometimes get a glimpse in school because we have so much other things to learn, right?
Right. That is amazing. So I love that every conversation goes to teeth. I've been accused of that myself. So your mom was right about everything, right? Um, seriously. And the climate that you are in, the expansion going to Washington, isn't that amazing how it just opens up your mind of, wow, this is what's possible. And I need to step up what I'm learning so that I can help more patients, help more people, and be the provider that I know I can be. How amazing. So I am a huge believer that our scope of practice needs to equal our knowledge. And boy, do we have a lot to offer students and patients. When I was in Denver at Under One Roof and I got to see Janet's van, I was just blown away by what is possible. That's like just one of many examples.
And Janet too has this energy just within her, and she is very open to teach, right? That van door opened and it was like, hold on, you're doing what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know you. Wow. Right. Like, so that even just the light bulb went off, and then to see the access of care she's providing that is underserved, and she's even elevating it more than what sometimes you can get in a general practice, was just mind blowing. And also she uses her resources, right?
Yeah.
I mean, she had business cards of other people to really be like, oh, we have this going on. Let me get you hooked up with this person, and we're going to find a way to solve your problem. Not just, oh, that's nice to know you have a problem. Here I am just to listen to it, right? She, is just, it's an amazing thing to have mobile dentistry.
Yeah, that's the only example I can like quickly come up with, like how you must have felt moving to Washington State and just being like, whoa, wait, hygienists are doing this? Like that's how I felt when I saw Janet's van. You must have just spent, I would love to know how many CEs you took the first year or two that you were out there.
I've taken a lot. I would say even just last month, I probably took about 8. And I think also with CE, the access has changed. I mean, I remember when I first came out, I had to pay a lot of money and there wasn't virtual. So it was late night or on the weekends. So I think right now our CE that's available to us meets us where we are in our career because we can do it at night. We can watch it later. We can also, I love being tested on the material. So I like the aspect of answer these 5 questions. Were you paying attention? Did you learn? What did you gain from this? To really make you also turn that light bulb on that my one takeaway is going to be this, and this is how I'm going to translate it into practice. Or this is amazing technology. I need my doctor to learn more about it because I can only learn so much and fight for it, but he needs to see it in action so we can together work as a team, make it happen for our patients.
Wow, that's so great. And you can tell that when you take CE, it does help build your confidence on how you implement things and if you implement things into practice. That's a really good point, Noriana. Um, Thinking of yourself when you first graduated, I would probably say it's like being a lifelong learner, but what do you think the biggest obstacle was for you going from, as far as like a clinician, going from student to practitioner?
I think it was my communication with patients.
Mm.
So one thing I really wish that was done more at the time when I was in school was more role-playing scenarios
Oh,
and having that conversation. So, because in your clinical setting, we didn't have patients that declined x-rays. That was part of,
mm,
right? So when I got it, I was like, I've never encountered this. What do I do?
yeah.
And so this role playing, which I still enjoy this part. If I have another hygienist, I'm like, how would you handle that? Do you mind like asking me the question as the patient so I can come and give me some feedback? So I really love any modeling of having an open conversation and just learning this skill set of communication because in school, my patient's there because they want to be there for the most part. Um, right. So they're just like, okay, this is what I signed up for. You have to get your grade. I want you to pass. So I'm going to be a good patient. And that's not what we encounter in the real world so much.
That
And
is
just,
such a good point. That is such a good point. I mean, all of our patients in school, okay, yes, I'll have the x-rays. Okay, yeah, insurance doesn't matter, right? All of those really tough conversations that we have with patients, we're kind of blundering our way through when we get out there. That's so valuable. Okay, I will work on that, Noriana.
well, and I think too, that's why we're not, unfortunately, with this climate, we're not seeing a lot of hygienists want to stay in the career. And to me, I'm like, well, is it the challenges we're facing that we just had no exposure to, and it really throws us off of our confidence. And then our confidence diminishes and we back away. We're like, I don't want to work anymore, right? So I love that you're going to work on it. I'm so excited. I I think it's just a valuable skill set.
It is. Well, we're always looking for ways of how can we make that transition. My job is to help the student go from acceptance letter to graduation. But I have lots of people out there that are supporting the student once they graduate. But to do the role playing and to talk about the different scenarios, just to give the students the tools that they need to address those difficult conversations. I just had a recent graduate reach out to me and say, how do I tell a patient that they have periodontal disease? And I was like, oh my goodness, that you just have to say it. Role playing is so key. How do I come up with the words? Instead of owning the disease, let the patient own the disease, right?
Yep.
Instead of you're the information sharer, you're the assessment gatherer. But I think oftentimes it's hard to say, what does that look like when I say it? Whereas in school, you're right. They're all here for us to help us be successful. When we get out there, it's a complete shift, complete shift. Oh, I didn't even think of that before. I love that.
And too, you think about it, we sometimes go into, especially a new grad, thinking the dentist is going to be more of a leader or really mentor us, and that's not always the case. And we have hygienists who are inundated, who don't have the time either. And so where do you go to find that, right? Having that resource is so key, especially with addressing periodontal, because we're like, we're co-diagnosing, but does the dentist have to say what, right? And every state's a little different and how they
Yes.
work. So I think, and we know we need to address the perio ASAP, because it is on the rise. It is so prevalent, and we don't want to fall into a neglectful thing because of our limiting conversation to be like, oh, right?
Yeah.
So
Yes.
I love the role playing. Let's do it.
Yeah, well, they get their license, and the last thing they want to do is lose it for saying the wrong thing to the patient or not saying something they need to say to the patient. And even I was guilty of thinking that the dentist comes in and like acts like the faculty, kind of gives me the guidance I need to move forward to the next step. And that is so not what happens. They're doing their thing. They're looking for what surgical needs are here for the patient. What kind of restorative plan do we have to put together? Some of them are part of the perio conversation, some of them are not, and it's really on you to put the key pieces together and come up with that co-diagnosis with the doctor for the patient. But man, it's really on your own shoulders. And we do kind of, how do we communicate that is so key and so important for the patient to even understand and move forward. And that is
Right.
clunky. That is so clunky, Noriana. And I never put the dots together till right now, how that can really connect to burnout and feeling inadequate and losing confidence and not understanding what our place or part is and our role in that operatory. Okay, so you've given me a good new challenge to work on. I love that. Thank you. I knew you would. That's just who you are.
I think, and putting this out there, you're putting this podcast and knowing hygienists, especially new grads, reach out to another hygienist, whether it's social media, whether it's somebody you met at a continuing education course, someone in the component, like this is what we're here for, is to support our community and to support you thrive. And unfortunately, there will be hygienists you'll come in contact to that don't have that mindset, but don't let that deter you. Keep going after and finding someone who will mentor you or just help you. Even if it's just like, I'm here to listen, here's my feedback.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, because a strong network really helps you overcome those obstacles, especially early on. And early on is probably when we have the hardest time creating that network.
Yep. Yeah.
What would you, other than taking CEs and going to conferences, what really great tools maybe could you share about creating a network? Because I know you're really good at networking with people.
I think just go for it. Like if you see someone standing in a corner in a room and you're somewhere, go up and say hi. Because that person may just be as nervous as you are to make a connection. And that one connection can open a door for another connection, because then you're going to be introduced to their friend, and then their friend's going to share information. And it almost is just like the spider web is built. I always say, like, that's my best. And then you have all these lines that connect within your circle. So you have somebody who works at a kid's dentist. You have somebody who works at perio. You have someone who is using some technology that you're curious about. So you have your own internal resources if you can't get the connection from Google, right? Like Google can only give us so much. We can only watch so many YouTubes, but I think having that interpersonal, and COVID did us wrong for a little bit. We're still kind of like, it's kind of a little awkward. I mean, I felt like that at RDH Under One Roof. I was like, I've talked to this person on social media. I've seen them. I feel like I know them, but like, what do I hug them? Right? Like just kind of going back to our roots of being a good human.
I love that. You're absolutely right. We almost have to relearn that social connection that we all missed, and Under One Roof was just a great example of there was not one person that I talked to that I wasn't like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad we had this conversation. Everybody was looking for the same thing. that
Yeah.
connection. And as a new grad or even early graduate, somebody who's only been out in the field for a few years, having those people that you can just bounce ideas off of, case studies, even do the role play that you suggest, boy, that is worth its weight in gold. My goodness, it really helps us not feel like we're alone in our operatory,
Mhm.
for sure,
Yeah. Yeah.
for sure. And you're in Washington State, and I'm all the way over in New Hampshire. And when I ran into you at Evolution, I was so blown away that I somehow planted a seed in your heart to do something. And that's like an example of true networking.
It really is. And I saw you from afar and I had to share, right, with you what you inspired me to do. Um, because I think sometimes from a social media aspect, we see it maybe on a text, but the tone is really hard to read. So when you meet that person and you can see you spark something of curiosity, of adventure, of just love for something new, it fills our bucket.
Yes,
It validates us. It just does something is like, oh, that's so awesome.
yes.
So you inspired me to write poetry about my love for perio, and I would love to share a little bit with you.
Oh, you've decided to do.
Well, I'm gonna do, so I wrote one. It's kind of like that 10 things I hate about you, kind of. So it says, my dearest Perio, as I sit here pondering the tender moments we've shared, I cannot help reflect on 10 things I hate about you. The silent invasion. Like a thief in the night, you creep into our lives unnoticed, wreaking havoc on our once perfect union. Bleeding hearts. Your tender gums, once pink and healthy, now weep with every brush of my affection. Bad breath betrayal. Our sweet whispers tainted by the foul odor it brings, driving us apart with each exhale. Receding hopes. The shrinking embrace of your gums pulling away from me, leaving our love exposed and vulnerable. Painful memories. The ache and sensitivity of a constant reminder of the discomfort it brings in our carefree moments. Tooth loss trauma. The ultimate betrayal, stealing your teeth away from me, leaving gaps in our story that can never be filled. Guilty by association, the shame you bring as others judge our bond by the health of our gums. Costly sacrifices, the toll you take on our finances as we pour resources into healing the wounds you inflict. Persistent presence, your stubborn refusal to leave, clinging to you despite our best efforts to evict you from our lives. Uncertain future, it instills of what lies ahead of us if we cannot overcome the obstacle together. But fear not, my love, for I am here by your side, fighting tooth and gum to reclaim our vibrant health we once knew. Let us face this foe together with everything I have in my dental toolbox, knowing our love will prevail. Forever yours, the persistent periodontal hygienist.
I am completely blown away by that.
So you inspired me to write that.
Oh, that is exceptional. I'm I'm just I don't know. I don't even have any words, Noriana, and that's really hard to do.
So because of you, I went out of my comfort box, didn't think I was ever capable of putting pen to paper like that. And then also, like, once again, just sharing my passion for being in a periodontal practice and all things periodontal disease, but also like my frustrations.
Oh, absolutely.
So thank you for inspiring me.
Oh. Well, I just planted the seed. You had that inside of you the whole entire time. That is
Well,
amazing.
then you helped me water it, so
There we
thank you.
go. There we go. I know. I have found that most hygienists are seed planters, whether we're planting seeds with patients to make progress forward or planting seeds with each other to figure out our own potential and what's inside of us that needs to be pulled out. Thank you for sharing that. That is incredible. I'm just blown away. You should print that and put it in your operatory for patients to read while they're waiting for their exam.
I am very open to doing that. I would have not thought that, right? And then they're also seeing all the things it causes, right? Because sometimes they need a little extra creativity explanation to really have that set, like, oh no,
Yeah.
I'm either gonna die or my teeth are gonna fall out. I gotta prevent this, right?
Well, you could give it to him and say, I wrote this because this is how I feel about periodontal disease, and let the patient just read it and they'll see that, oh my goodness, because then it kind of takes it off of them a little bit, even though this is something they have and that they're dealing with. It's your
Yeah,
frustration. Boy, is it such a tough, we have a really tough call, don't we?
we do. We do. Yeah.
Large. But we are fortunate in that we're able to do it. And boy, I'm excited that we are sharing this with the next generation of hygienists because there will be a time when we're not the ones out there doing it. And I hope that the next generation just carries the baton forward to do just what they need to.
Same. And this next generation, it's ever expanding for them. So look at the journey and the road that they are just going to be exposed to. It's going to be amazing for them. And we thank everybody behind us who have paved the way for us to even be where we are now. So, I mean, just to every hygienist who advocated for us, who got on their soapbox and made sure they were heard, like, I'm so appreciative to them because I wouldn't have the tools I have today. I wouldn't have the knowledge I have. I mean, we would just be still probably scraping teeth with sticks.
Amen. That is so incredibly true. It really, everything is slow but steady. As long as we're moving forward one step at a time. You really have to acknowledge all of those that have really put in the effort prior to, because our profession has expanded. And boy, it's after all of the continuing ed I took at Under One Roof, I'm just like, wow, we're really moving in a really wonderful direction. So I was very hopeful when I left there to see some of the expansion and learn some of the things like using the scanner, like the iTero scanner for education and documentation. I was just like blown away by that. That's just one example.
It's the best. I love an iTero scanner, and I think it's so good for the patients to see it in that 3D image. You can play with it, you can highlight it, and then you scan them again in a couple years where they're like, no, that tooth isn't wearing down. And you're like, actually, it has worn down, and this computer has generated all the things. And then they're like, oh, what do I need to do to fix that? I'm going to lose my tooth if we keep going at this, right? So I think it's just really great tool for education. One thing to help solidify what we are recommending and why we are recommending it for the patient and individualizing our treatment.
Yes. Yeah. That's just like one of many examples I experienced at Under One Roof. And I'm just like, okay, how do I use that to help students see that? And I always feel like we're running out, we don't have enough time in dental hygiene school, but we can certainly try to expose our students to every opportunity so they have at least a baseline when they graduate.
Agreed. Yeah. Even if it is just a little nugget, that'll inspire them to maybe search for it when they've done graduating. They saw it, they want to know more. Or at least when they go into an office, they're like, oh, I know something, versus being totally like,
Yeah.
and then they freak out and they want to go home at lunch, right?
Yeah. All circling back to your point about being a lifelong learner for sure. For sure. Well, I think that's a really great place to end, Noriana. I appreciate having you on the podcast, and I will put your contact information in the show notes for students to reach out if somebody would like to reach out with questions or comments or concerns for you, questions sometimes pop up when they're listening to the podcast, and they certainly send me messages for sure. So yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you.